Hello and welcome to our lecture today, which would focus on career counseling models. A model is a framework for understanding a concept. So it is a representation of an actual uh, thing that we would use to. So a model kind of like reflects what the um, actual object that we're looking at should be like, but it is just a representation of that physical thing or object or of a phenomenon or construct that we're looking at. And so career counseling models are just um, a framework that is developed that helps us to understand, to operationalize career counseling. So we'll take a look at several models today. Um, the models help us to apply the theories that we looked at in a previous lecture, which we're going to also cover today as well. And so, models, um, there are several models that have been developed and which are covered in the text. And in your readings, you would see these models also. And so we'll talk about some of them. Um, Career counseling or career development research has produced several guidelines for career counseling, and these are captured in the models that we'll talk about today. There are five basic career counseling models that we would look at, and this include trace and factor and person environment fit models, developmental models, learning theory models, cognitive information processing model, uh, and multicultural counseling models for ethnic groups. The trait and factor models, they, um, just like we talked about, tend to focus on uh, an individual's trait and captures those traits or abilities and classify them. And they also involve some type of uh, assessment, using assessment instruments to capture those traits and um, seeking out occupational information resources and making sure that we use such information to match a person's traits or abilities. And so every theory that adopts the traits and factors model kind of like endorse an individualized approach to career counseling, um, focusing on that particular individual and um, making sure that we identify the person's traits and by using assessment instruments and uh, by obtaining information uh, about certain careers that a person is interested in and using that in the counseling process. And so these models utilize a rational problem solving approach, um, and kind of like just what I talked about, uses the information that is obtained from the assessments um, to help the individual to make an informed career choice. The role of the counselor in these models um, shifts from a directive approach to one that involves one of negotiation and collaboration. Um, and what that means is that the um, counselor is not the one that is directing the process. What the counselor does is to work collaboratively with a client to help them to identify their um, traits and to identify information that pertains to the careers that they're interested in and helping them to make choices that occupational choices that are best for them. Um, the major focus of traits and factors model is the enhancement of the individual self-knowledge and making sure that there is an optimal career fit for that person so that the person have job satisfaction, they may have tenure, and they may enjoy their work life. Uh, Job satisfaction is very important uh, in traits and factors models, making sure that that person finds that job fulfilling and that that person achieves tenure, which is longevity on the job. Developmental models, on the other hand, tend to emphasize, lifelong, um, tend to look at careers in terms of as a lifelong experience, um, and that the person at each stage of their careers would need a certain type of support. And so these models um, tend to um, look at the processes or develop strategies um, that a counselor would use to work with this person at every stage of their careers. Uh, all life roles that the person is engaged in uh, are focused, and so there is a tendency, or there is this idea that the counselor's role is to help the person to achieve some type of balance and to address the particular needs that the person would have at every stage that they have. So if the person is in school and they have career aspirations, what are some needs that they have? If they are in their early careers, that's they're studying a job, what are some needs that they would have at that particular time? And what are some ways that the client can be helped to address those needs? If they're in their mid career, if they're in their late careers, if they're retiring. And so all of those have to put into consideration. So the counselor's responsibility is to help the client to develop and accept an integrated, an adequate picture of their selves and their roles, and to make sure that that is tested against reality. To say, okay, look, this is something that's feasible, such that whatever decisions that they make at any point in time uh, provide some type of success for them, um, and provide satisfaction for them and benefits the individual and um, the society as a whole. Learning theories um, focus on people's learning, uh, and these models um, they tend to look at the way that clients are able to uh, not only identify their interests and abilities, but are able to explore their potentials, their capabilities and interests, given the dynamism in the work environment, given how work has changed and work requirements has also changed. And so counselors that ascribe to this theory, these models, they are aware of the fact that each individual learns differently and that their unique learning is the most influential aspect of their career choice. The way that a person learns influences how um, influences what career choices they will make and how they go about choosing and staying in their career choice. And so learning is a key ingredient. And the major task of these models is to enhance learning opportunities for that person, whether it's on the job trainings, whether it is pre-job trainings, or whether it is hands-on trainings that the preference of that person or that would work for that person. And so these models tend to emphasize learning and how learning can be tailored to help a person to become better on their jobs or to make a career choice. So the counselor's role is viewed as very complex and inclusive, in such that the counselor assumes multiple roles. So they will serve as the mentor, the coach, the educator, um, and would also be that person that will facilitate the integration of both the person's personal and um, career goals. And so, um, a fundamental goal of the counselor using this model is to understand what motivates the client's behavior and how clients will arrive at their decisions. Um, so, the counselor's role is to motivate that person towards or away from certain activities, motivate them towards activities that would enhance uh, their career goals and aspirations and the achievement of those, to motivate them away from those that are detrimental to their career success. Another goal in this model is to understand how thought processes and actions influence career development and subsequent career decisions. And so the counselor would closely observe the client and to work with that client to think to help them to do some type of cognitive reframing, or to help them to address their thought processes, because um, a client's cognitive functions provide the client with a model of the world, how they perceive the world and their relation to it, how they perceive work, how do they perceive opportunities, how do they perceive certain types of occupations as opposed to others. Do they have a realistic evaluation of their skills and their abilities of the work and the demands? Um, Someone that, let's say, for example, a person that's visually impaired, um, that has aspirations to become a commercial pilot, flying jets. Would that be something that's realistic? Is that something that's feasible for that person? So the role of the counselor that uses this model is very um, complex. Cognitive information processing models is the next one, and these models, which are an extension of the career development theory, focuses on problem solving and decision making. The model emphasizes that information processing is a key skill in career exploration. So, if a person wants to get involved in a or make a choice about a particular occupation, how do they acquire information? How do they process that information? Uh, and so the key thing for individuals that use this model is to um, help the person um, or to facilitate their information processing. Uh, that is developing a set of activities that helps um, the client to process information. Multicultural models tend to look at the socio-cultural and environmental factors that also play a key role in a person's career choice. Uh, I think in one of the previous classes, I talked about how gender roles are likely to uh, impact a person's career choice, especially for women. Uh, and so sometimes for this model, um, there is a focus on the salient racial factors that impact people, racial or cultural factors that impact uh, people's ability to either learn or to